Tomorrow, voters will be heading to the polls for Detroit's primary election. 9 candidates for mayor will be on the ballot, and we've asked each of them to sit down with CBS News Detroit for a one-on-one conversation before Election Day. And today we have our final candidate, Solomon Kinloch. Thank you for being here with us.
I'm glad to be here.
So you are well known in this area, a pastor of a pretty huge congregation with 40,000 plus members.
Yes, families.
Let us know how you decided to get into this race and how will you manage that? That is a big undertaking if you were to move forward as mayor.
Well, one of the advantages that I have, unlike many other of my opponents, is pastoring a church like Triumph Church with so many families. I get the privilege of being able to hear their most intimate concerns standing at that altar. And many times what we discover is that it's in alignment with many of the polls that suggest that the average citizen doesn't feel as though that institutional politicians are taking their concerns and needs into consideration. And so that motivates me and that fuels me because it's not an addition to what I've been doing. It's an extension of what I've been doing. And all of my life, I've been serving people.
Okay, but just considering the fact that being a mayor is in itself a full-time job,
Yes.
Are you concerned at all about how you'd be able to balance all of that?
Well, I'll be a full-time mayor. I have staff that will continue to operate the church on a day-to-day basis. And on the weekend, I will go to church because of my own religious rearing and raising. And as my schedule permits, if I'm there, I will preach. Just like the mayor doesn't run the city alone, you can't build a church like Triumph Church alone. You have to have a great team.
Yeah, and you've been overseeing this church for close to 30 years, correct?
27 to be exact.
27 years. So you are someone who's been in Detroit. You know some of the
Yes.
issues here. What are some of the top issues that you see that need to be addressed?
Well, what's on the forefront right now is crime. You know, anytime it's happening to one child, it's too many children. Anytime it's happening to one senior, it's too many. And I've had the burden of having to eulogize and bury children who were taken from us too soon. And one of the things that we owe the citizens of Detroit is to make sure that the people in this city can feel safe.
Okay, what are some of your plans to do that? We know we talk to the police chief often, and they talk about some of the things that they're trying to do, but it really takes a group effort.
It takes a village. We have to continue to build on the work that's already there. One of the things I think is important is making sure that people who live in the community are recruited and retained to police their own community. We have to make sure that there's continuity of services. Just because there's a transition of mayor doesn't mean that there should be a transition where people still don't get what they deserve. That's justice and that's also safety. And so making sure that we have adequate police officers, making sure that they have the resources they need, that we're having continuous conversations between community and citizens to build that trust, and to make sure that we still have continuity where their 911 calls are going to be answered.
Sure, sure. You mentioned people who live in the community. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask
Yes.
you. People have questioned whether or not you live in Detroit or whether or
Yes.
not that's something you plan to do in the future. Can you speak on that?
Well, yes. My family and I, we own homes outside of Detroit, but I am a resident of Detroit. I've answered after that question has been asked multiple times. But when you look at my track record, my heart has always been in Detroit, and my heart will always be in Detroit. And I'm a current resident of Detroit.
Okay. Just moving forward in terms of winning people over who are outside of the church, what is something you have to say to them just about what you want to see for the city in the years to come?
Well, we have to have a city that's inclusive. We have a great foundation, and we have to build on that foundation. We have to make sure that we're building a Detroit that works for everyone. It can't just be about downtown, and it can't just be about two or few who are allowed to feast and get fat and not give the rest of the citizens in this city a plate or a salsa to get something to eat. We have to make sure that what we see happening in this city doesn't leave any resident behind. And I know what that feels like because I grew up as a child in poverty on the west side of Detroit, and they told me the city was coming back and there was a renaissance and a revitalization. But as a child, I didn't see it on my street, and it didn't come to my door. And I don't want any child, I don't want any resident in the city to feel like that.
Yeah, and it is important to see that. And I feel like the city has been seeing some of that for the last few years. We're
Yes.
seeing downtown come back, a lot of
Yes.
neighborhoods coming back to life. How do you plan to do that moving forward, especially when it comes to finances?
Well, one of the things we have to do is stop treating residents as an afterthought. They have to be the first thought. They need to be a part of the conversation. We ought to not be coming in, lowering our wheel over people. we ought to convene the table. The wonderful attribute and responsibility of the mayor, he not only has an opportunity to communicate vision, he can also cast vision, and he can convene the table of stakeholders in order to execute that vision. That's one of the first things I would do. I would bring residents together with corporate leaders and philanthropic leaders and union leaders and faith-based leaders and those community stakeholders that's already in community doing the work. You don't have to tell them what is going on in the community, the problems, and you don't have to give them the solutions. They already got them. We just need to listen to them.
All right, well, that is our time. Again, we thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
Stay with CBS News Detroit for complete coverage of tomorrow's primary election. The polls open at 7 a.m., and there is still time to register to vote if you haven't done so already. You can do so in person at your clerk's office, or you can check your registration online. For more information, head to cbsdetroit.com.